Haverty's Furniture has more styles and custom.
It's the anti-checker.
We will return to your scheduled programming shortly, or we are currently experiencing technical difficulty.
Hey guys, what's going on? Michael J. Crawford, the Anti-Checker here. I am afraid this is going to probably be a fairly brief stream. I just got home from the doctor, very long, drawn-out appointment, which was not the most comfortable appointment in the world. Pokes and prods and questions and tests and all that crap. So I'll give you an update on where I'm at with all that stuff, and then I'm going to rest for a little while, probably play a little Space Engineers this afternoon, and then get ready for Midnight's Edge tonight. But yeah, I am freaking exhausted. But first and foremost, Schromer was first in the chat. Greetings, my friend. Rock Solid says first, but actually it was a very quick second. Bradley says hey. Malachi says hey. Dan says hey. Life with Matthew says hail Karoga. I mean, hello, Anti-Trekker. Shame on you, Life with Matthew. Rock Solid says BirdOPrey gets it wrong. And in other words, in other news, water is wet and Bird cheats at Space Engineers. Very true. Says, I'm here. Bird says kapla. Schromer says hail Karoga, death to Turtistan for some reason. Rock Solid says, is Mr. Miles here yet? Not yet, but when he is here, I'm sure he will claim that he is first. Has Bird gotten anything right? Good question. I think he has once or twice, but not well, and he did. In fairness, he corrected this particular error, which we'll talk about in just a minute. Says Gesundheit, got salad commercial before you stream. Well, there you go. Because, you know, when people think of Anti-Trekker, they think of salad. I'm waiting for Mr. Miles to beat me. Son of a bitch. Well, Thomas, that's probably not going to happen anytime soon, but welcome. Commander Shran says hello. Rock Solid says, remember, people, smash the like button, share via social, set chat to live, turn back and can on before going live. Donate if you can. Join the Patreon and down with Karoga. Yes. Vile Mike says, damn it, Anti-Trekker, I'm trying to edit a video and do laundry, and so you go live now? Son of a bitch. Sorry, Vile. I should have done it earlier, but I was at the doctor's. Bird says, get what wrong? Yeah, like you don't know. Thomas says, easier to say what you get right. That's true, yeah. Schromer says, dear Anti-Trekker, there's an overabundance of bodies in Karoga. Do you have any idea where we can dump them? Anonymous says. Yeah, in the throne room of the Karogan leader, there's plenty of room there. Just dump the bodies right there. And by the way, he said in his video today that he happens to like maggots and fur flying and all that. And Rock Solid puts a couple of bucks into the chat. Thank you so much. Says, son of a beach, hooker client confidentiality. You got it, my friend. Life just isn't complete without just a little bit of this.
Hey, you want to learn about Jesus?
There's no such thing as hooker-client confidentiality.
And, by the way, I do need to say, for those of you that won the contest for Space Engineers, now I've tried to get the licenses out to some of you. However, one thing I did discover is that if you are not currently a friend on Steam, I cannot send you the license key. So if you are, in fact, a winner of the contest, please friend me on Steam and send me a message through Steam identifying yourself. Thank you, by the way, to Aaron Matthew for doing so, because his name on Steam does definitely not Aaron Matthew. So if you are one of the people that won the contest, please make sure you friend me, you identify yourself on Steam so that I can then send you the game key. I would be more than happy to do so, but I'm waiting on you guys. Anyway, back to the chat for just a minute. Stromer says, Dear, I already read that. Dan says, the planned Game of Thrones prequel has been scrapped for a new prequel set to be hundreds of years ago. Is to get made. It's called House of Dragon. Well, you know what? Quite frankly, Dan, I could not care less. And I apologize to all my Game of Thrones fans out there, because I personally really lost interest in Game of Thrones at the end of season 1 when they killed Ned Stark. I really enjoyed season 1, and then they killed Ned Stark, and I was like, well, I'm done, because he was the one character that I really liked, and they killed him. Dar says, I'm ordering Orville cosplay for next year's con. Very cool. Bird has been right with his most famous line, a man does love a Jeep like he loves his car or a Jeep. That part is true. But here is the thing that you're missing. Okay, so here's what Bird got wrong. A lot of people, Bird put up on antitrekker.com a link to Ask Antitrekker, similar to his Ask Bop that he has on BirdOPrey5.com. I think people were thinking they're going to ask Antitrekker for advice, which of course most people think, why should I ask Antitrekker for advice? He's on everyday live streaming, he reads all our chats, and he gives me well thought out answers in the live streams. It seems like a complete waste, and you would be completely right about that. Well, he left out a couple of very important words, and he has since corrected it. It should read, Ask Mrs. Antitrekker. And so I believe he has corrected that, and Mrs. Antitrekker has agreed to answer the questions that come in. And of course, unlike Ask BirdOPrey, she will give you good advice. So there you go. Darren says, uploading my response to your response to my response as we speak. How's the leg? All right, so here's the deal with the leg. Thank you for asking, Darren, but and I'm looking forward to seeing your video. But here's the deal with my leg. So the doctor is a little concerned at this point that I may have some nerve damage that occurred during where they do a procedure at this kind of surgery called a nerve block, where they basically, I don't know the exact details of how they do it, but they somehow do something to your nerves so that you have no sensation in your leg while the surgery is taking place. That way they don't put you under a full anesthesia. They do the nerve block and then sedate you so that you sleep through the procedure, and since your nerves are basically turned off through the nerve block, you don't wake up. Well, here's the problem. All that worked fine, but to this day, I can't move my leg. I can feel things just fine. I can move my ankle around just fine and stuff, but I cannot lift my leg off the ground. And the physical therapist has been working with me on it. It appears that everything is quote-unquote connected okay, because like when you run electrostim on the muscles, they flex okay. Nothing in there seems like it's not connected. It's just like there's zero strength in my leg. So there is a concern that there could be some nerve damage. That could be a serious problem if that is the case. And so also because of that, it makes it so that while I can get around with my cane, as far as walking around, since there's no strength in that leg, if I lose my balance, I have no way to stop myself from falling down. And so he also fitted me with a very uncomfortable leg brace to wear when I'm walking around. I don't particularly like it, but it is a safety precaution at this point. The biggest problem with all this is that there is no way whatsoever to test for said nerve damage until at least a couple of months from now. And the reason is because they did this nerve block during the surgery procedure. If you do a test for nerve damage within 3 months of you having surgery that used a nerve block procedure, you will always get a false positive. So we have to wait until after the 3-month period to test it, assuming that my leg doesn't just naturally start to regain its strength, which is what we're ultimately hoping for. But that's kind of the news that I have on the leg front right there. So that's my very long-winded answer to Darren's comment. Thank you, Darren. But the Karoga throne is made of bodies. Exactly, Thomas, so they won't notice the smell. I produced 4 videos yesterday, including a 40-plus minute video. What's Mr. Miles' excuse again? Mic drop. Well, actually, Rock Solid, look at Mr. Miles' videos. They are pretty good, but yeah, he's kind of lazy. But actually, I shouldn't say that because I know for a fact that he's going to be watching this live stream in a little bit, because one other thing we're going to do in just a couple of minutes is I'm going to do a live reaction to the Mandalorian trailer. I have not seen the Mandalorian trailer as of right now, and so we're going to watch it together. Hopefully we don't get copyright blocked and all that. But I'm going to take a chance and do it the way Mr. Miles asked me to do it, and we'll find out in a couple of minutes. But first I'm going to read a little more in the comments and see what's going on. Are you saying you're the keymaster? I'm the gatekeeper. You are definitely not the gatekeeper, because Sigourney Weaver looked good as the gatekeeper. You don't. I posted a YouTube video, but I'm not sure I know I'm going to tag it correctly. In the tag bar, I just put hashtag next to the word. That's all right. Here's the thing. What you want to do, and as far as the tags, put anything and everything you can think of that is related to the subject. Just don't put things that are misleading. Like if you're doing a video about why you think the Enterprise D is a better ship than the Enterprise C, don't put in the tags, like sex or something like, you want to make sure that it's related to the topic. So you can put spaceships, you can put vehicles, you can put Star Trek, you can put Captain Picard, you can put Captain Kirk, you put Gene Roddenberry, you can put science fiction, you can put commentary, opinion, but yeah, just make sure it has something to do with your video. Valor says, just got back from Zombieland 2. Perfect timing for everyone. Very cool. Haven't seen it yet. I've heard from people that if you like Zombieland, you'll like Zombieland 2. If you didn't care for Zombieland, you won't like Zombieland 2. But Zombieland is still the better of the 2 films. That's the general consensus I've gotten from people that I trust. Ned Stark was killed. Spoilers. Yep, true. Dan doesn't watch Game of Thrones either. Cinnabon is here. How you doing? Rock Solid says, the nerve. Yes, the nerve. That's the problem. Darth Vader says, anti-trigger advice. I have this problem. My neighbor keeps dying when I shoot them. How do I dispose of the corpses without the cops finding out? Well, it's very simple, Darth Revan. If you live in Karoga, they don't care. So move to Karoga. Thomas says, anti-trigger, so that means Mrs. Anti-Trigger will get 900 questions a day. Well, if so, at least the channel will definitely grow, because there'll be lots of Mrs. Anti-Trigger advice videos. So that'll mean lots and lots of views, right? So that's a good thing. And Yosef puts a couple of euros in. Dear Auntie, did you get any submissions? At number 23. I did get a submission. However, I am going to let Mrs. Antricker answer it. But in her first Ask Mrs. Antricker video, which we'll probably record in a few days. But number 23, let's bring that bad boy up for you. All right, and let's see. Dan says the Game of Thrones guy's not doing Star Wars anymore. When I think the movies are made, I think the movies made still get made. Not sure what you mean exactly there. Are you asking if I think they'll still make the movies? If so, I think it's all going to ride on Episode 9. If Episode 9 breaks $2 billion and everybody's happy, then they'll probably get back into full production of Star Wars. If Episode 9 fails at the box office, then I think we may see very few Star Wars movies moving forward. John DeMarco's in the house, says, greetings, how you doing? Sci-Fi says, signed to Darth Revan. Bradley says, is it time to sue someone yet? Or, dude, you signed something without reading it first? I don't think it's quite time to sue anyone yet because we don't know what the extent of the damage, if there is any, yet. So, yeah. Mr. Londell says, greetings and felicitations, hip hip hurrah, and I believe it is pronounced tally-ho. Darth Redmond says, sci-fi nation true, and he's still time back and forth. Darren says, sounds like they may have to replace your fiber optic cable so you can move your leg. Yeah. So, I don't know what's going to happen there, but sucks. Bradley says, it's pretty good, I think. Thomas says, Mr. Miles bought Karoga orphans to edit videos. Yes, that is true. Cinnamon says, when my dad and his had his knee replaced, took 6 months before he could move his leg again, almost a year to walk without a cane. Yeah, and that does happen. It's not unheard of, but it is uncommon apparently. So yeah. Surf says the trailer has good music. Okay. Rock Solid says, ouch, I look good. Oh, okay, I look okay. I look alive. Oh, hell, I forget it. Well, sorry, Rock Solid, just got to be honest. Says, Mandalorian actually looks pretty decent to me. I actually want to check it out. I haven't checked out the trailer yet. We're going to watch that in a couple of minutes. But, you know, the little bit of stuff I've seen on it, it looks genuinely Star Wars-y. So it could be an awesome show. And I understand Jon Favreau's behind the show. That's a good sign. He's talented. So, you know, it's not like I have no hope for The Mandalorian. But as far as Star Wars as a franchise, it's going to be all riding on Episode 9. Darren is uploading response to the response before I even start a response to the response. So how will I have to make a response to the response of the response? Oh, have I gone cross-eyed? I know, it's going to get confusing, but that's the fun. We'll get this multi-line debate going in 17 different directions. We'll see what happens. Striking channels that review trailers is so ridiculous. Don't they want more people to see the trailer? Yeah, it makes no sense. Although I could kind of understand why they might strike a channel that hates the trailer. But overall, striking channels that review trailers makes no sense whatsoever because it's free advertising. Dan says, in the TOS episode by any other name, Dr. McCoy refers to the suit synthesizer as a selector. Is there anything in Star Trek that annoys you because it has multiple different names? Well, you know, I know they've called the transporter the dematerializer. You know, they've referred to the primary hull of a ship as the bridge, even though the bridge is, of course, just one room. There's lots of stuff that they have done throughout the years. As far as misnaming. Think about my personal favorite, even though it's more of a retcon, but photon torpedoes versus phasers set to proximity blast, right? And so things like that. Do I find that particularly annoying? No, I just kind of write it off as writers making simple mistakes. I don't get worked up on the canon of that, even though I'm in the middle of this fight over something like that with the BirdOPrey thing. That being said, I think selector is actually a more accurate name for what we see in TOS. I've heard them referred to as food synthesizers and food dispensers and food selectors. Dispenser or selector is actually more accurate because unlike in the Next Generation, in the original series and through the original series movie era, there is an actual galley on the ship. There is a chef on the ship that prepares the food, and then they basically get the food into a quick cook situation, kind of like think about an Uber microwaves kind of thing. So they get it all prepped. It's prepped, and in the food synthesizer, you put in your little ID card, and it grabs the kind of like an automat kind of thing. It'll bring over the food dish that you want. And if it's a hot food, it zaps it. If it's not a hot food, it doesn't, obviously, and etc. That is more of a food selector. Not Ryan Johnson, but $2 in says Secret Wars shirt for the win. Yes, I do love me the Secret Wars. I want to see this as the next big Marvel movie. I think that would be freaking awesome. By the way, Dan, that's my long-winded answer as far as that stuff is concerned. Rock Solid, talking about YouTube. Okay, there's Yosef's Super Chat. Thank you again for the €2, my friend. Says, why the Enterprise D is better than the Enterprise E. Sex. Awesome title. And Thomas puts in the link to my other channel. Says, don't forget to sub to the other channel. Thank you, Thomas. As you may have seen, I put out a video all about that today. I do all the hashtag stuff on Instagram. Yeah, I don't put hashtags in my tags on YouTube. I don't think it's necessary. Zombie Apocalypse Gary. I don't know if I've seen you before, but welcome if you're new. The joys of getting old just when you get one health issue done with, something else goes wrong. Absolutely. The warranty has expired. That is absolutely true. Darth Revan says subbed. Thank you, my friend. Is raving over number 23. Not Ryan Johnson said hello out there, YouTube land. Hey Ryan, even though you just super chatted, I already said hi to you. Mr. Lundell says, Antricker, you got your undies in a twist because Ned faced the Axemen. You missed an almost great series. You saw Ned. Oh, because Ned faced the Axemen. You missed an almost great series. You saw Ned through his children as they took up the mantle. I get that. But I don't want to see Ned's children grow up and become good people. I want to watch Ned. I really loved his character. He was the one character that I really, really liked, and then they killed him. Hey nerds, holy crap, on BirdOPrey 5 yelling at innocent gardeners just doing their job. Well, you know, that's Bird. Come on, he's a dick. Dan23, you have my email. Oh, you keep going back and forth. I seriously doubt episode 9 makes $2 billion. Well, I understand. I don't think it will either. But because I'm considering episode 8 didn't even come close, so I think that Star Wars is in trouble. And let's see. Marlena says hi. How you doing? Roxalt says that's not right. You should also use. It does not. Okay, you guys are going back and forth. Try to put the name at the beginning if you can. That makes it easier for me to see that you're talking to someone else. Rock solid. Episode 9 is about finding an ancient Sith artifact with a dagger. Well, if so, it'll probably be lame. Let's see. I can't believe how Bird had a meltdown in the Ask BirdOPrey 5 video today. Yells at people cleaning outside and gives bad advice to someone asking about Frank Sinatra and Freddie Mercury. Well, you know, that's BirdOPrey 5 gives bad advice. And that's why we're creating the Ask Mrs. Anti-Trekker, so that people can get some good advice. So remember, you should ask, if you ask BirdOPrey 5 a question and you get some kind of really bad advice, you turn around and ask Mrs. Anti-Trekker. Dear Anti-Trekker, how can Kuroga turn cough, 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 strategic retreat, cough, 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 wink, wink, into glorious victory? Or is that just victory in Kurogan dictionaries? Anonymous. Well, first of all, Sharmer, if you're going to ask questions, go to the website, but I will answer this one. Yeah, there is, you know, first of all, Kuroga can't win because strategic retreat is the closest they have to a victory, which is why they try to claim it is a victory. Darth Revan says, Enter, did you think about going to Woodland Realms to seek out the elves or a wizard for help? Not yet. Roxanne says, they announced that if you are a Verizon customer with Unlimited, you get Disney Plus for a year for free. Oh, very cool, because I actually do have Verizon, and I do have Unlimited, so awesome. Let's see. Kuroga doesn't retreat, they advance to the rear. That's true. Darren call it Conversations with Anti-Trekker. Oh, the video. Yeah, I'm going to be interesting to see what he does. There's not Ryan Johnson's $2. Thank you so much. And I do love it. I've had this shirt for a very long time. But I've also been a fan of, I mean, Secret Wars, when it first came out back in the 80s, oh man, I ate that up. And I know, like, for example, you know, people argue about Marvel and DC. I get it. Crisis on Infinite Earths is a much deeper, intricate story than Secret Wars. But I like Secret Wars better. It was easy to follow. It was fun. And that's one thing that Crisis on Infinite Earths missed. It wasn't fun. And that's actually, you know, one of the biggest problems with the DC movies. They're not fun. Valor says, if one packs 3 quantum torpedo warheads into one torpedo casing, could it blow up the Death Star in one hit or just critically damage it? Quantum torpedoes, 3 warheads in a single casing, yeah, that would probably, I don't know if it would evaporate the Death Star, but I'm pretty sure it would do enough damage where it would no longer be functional. My headcanon thinks the food slots on TOS are more like being protein resequencers on Enterprise. Well, the thing is that, remember, in the original series and in Star Trek 6, we actually, in Star Trek 6, we see the galley. In the original series, in the episode Charlie X, we hear from the chef. And so, and in fact, they talk about that they were doing the synthetic meat, and that the chef was trying to, and Kirk was trying to get them to make it look like real turkey for Thanksgiving. Let's see. But the 2 most Ned like of his kids were killed off for not really his kids. Oh, spoilers. Well, thanks for ruining it. Now I don't have to watch it. Sometimes you can order something from a replicator on Star Trek and it gives you multiple versions to choose from. Well, if you're talking about remember, replicators are different. Replicators are next-gen era. And so replicators don't store food supplies like the synthesizers or the selectors or whatever you call them on TOS. Replicators actually use basically transporter patterns to create the food out of energy. Rocksolid's taking off. Have a good one, my friend. Enter. The questions, are they jokes or serious? I don't want to go on joking and Mrs. Intricker gets annoyed. You know how dark my sense of humor is. Well, it's joking, but don't go too dark, Darth Raven. I mean, don't start talking about how you like to, I don't know, abuse animals or something like that. That would, I know you probably do, but you shouldn't joke about it. Sometimes on Star Trek, you can order a drink like water, tea, coffee from a replicator and be asked for the temperature. Yes, but that's in Next Gen. In fact, I just watched The Defector, in which a Romulan orders a glass of water from the replicator and asks for the temperature, and he gives the temperature in a Romulan measurement, and the computer says it only measures temperature in Fahrenheit or centigrade. And I was kind of disappointed by that because I was like, well, wait a minute. So you mean Vulcan measurements and Andorian measurements and stuff? It won't take any of that. You have to use English specific but Earth-based temperature. That's kind of stupid. And shouldn't they, if they're going to do anything, shouldn't it be freaking Kelvin? Just saying. I just now realized I'm also wearing a shirt with a Marvel comic, except mine is Spider-Man number 70. Well, still cool enough, my friend. I agree, Marvel always seemed more fun than versus DC being more serious. Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with serious, but for me, fun won out. And that's why I'm more of a Marvel fanboy than a DC fanboy. Yes, some DC stuff is fun. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying all DC stuff is serious and dry and all that. But the big stuff from DC has always been the more serious stuff. When you think of like The Dark Knight, which was, groundbreaking, Watchmen, Crisis on Infinite Earths, those types of things that really made the 80s such an incredible era of comics. But the big events that happened on the DC side were primarily these very serious, very well-written stories, where on Marvel, the big things that happened were just a whole lot of fun. Benny is in the house, says, hello, y'all, how you doing? And Captain MKG throws a couple of bucks in, says, driving in snow equals profit. Sharing the profits. Very good, my friend. You're driving in snow. I'm jealous. I would love to have some snow here. I love the snow, and so I say let it snow, although I know snow here is, we get it, but not a lot. And number 23, everyone's favorite. Let's bring that bad boy up. And if you heard a weird noise there while that was playing, that's because I'm getting the Mandalorian trailer prepped here for my live reaction here. Let me see, what can I do here to try and get it queued up. There, that looks good. And let's trim the top a little bit. There we go. Want to make it look nice for Mr. Miles, because Mr. Miles is very picky about these types of things, and he does such a bang-up job with editing that I hate to disappoint him. There we go. This is the actual Mandalorian trailer, which we're going to talk about in just a minute. Let me read a couple more comments, and then we'll get right into it. Schromer says, I'm so glad Bird put a comma when he gave out the gardener. He was blowing leaves, the gardener. Could have been so wrong and lead to embarrassing misunderstanding. DC animated movies are bad. DC does do some really, really good animated films. Revan says, "Hey, Trigger, what if a twin of an admiral who stole his code and he can order a weapon from a replicator?" Well, that's a good question. I mean, because I know that obviously, like when you see Riker's transporter duplicate was able to impersonate Riker, but he was more than just a twin. He was actually an identical copy. But as far as an actual twin, I think the computer could probably tell the difference, but I don't know for sure. Snow for Halloween is wrong. Oh, I don't know about that. Let's see. I'm just going to read. Oh, and Trek Yards is in the house. Hey, how you doing? Either Captain Foley or Commander Calkins. I'm assuming Captain Foley. Welcome, my friend. Are you back from the UK? And if not, what the heck are you doing watching this? You should be out enjoying blood pudding or whatever they eat there. Roxanne says, number 20 is not everyone's favorite. Some of us prefer the hooker client confidential. Okay, everybody but you. Valor says, my sister and I are stalemate. Need your opinion. Data versus a platoon of stormtroopers. I say Data wins. She says stormtroopers. Oh, no, Data for sure. First of all, Data is much, and we've seen it actually. I'm trying to think of the episode was. I can't remember the name of it, but the one where Data was sent to the planet where there was a colony and he had to get them to evacuate. And he basically whipped out a phaser and took out like 5 armed guys before a single one of them could get a shot off. All right, so Data is incredibly accurate, incredibly fast with a phaser. Number 2, we've seen that Stormtrooper blasters can hit a human and not kill them. And Data is significantly tougher than a human. So I would doubt that a blaster is going to do significant damage to Data. It would take hundreds of hits with blasters. So based on that, Data would just mow through a platoon of stormtroopers. Droid Ship in the Mandalorian trailer has a few different names. Well, I haven't seen it yet. We'll find out in a minute. Yosa says, I honestly can't stand winter or cold. I moved to Florida, but I heard the people there are crazy, so still undecided. Well, you do what a lot of people do is go to Florida during the winter. And it is Captain Foley. Welcome back to the good side of the planet. Glad to see you back. And I see that Luke is here saying, un vin longe il prospère. Or however you say that. Welcome, Luke. Anti-Trekker is a Sith Lord versus a class... Anti-Trekker, a Sith Lord versus a class of younglings. Well, we've already seen that. So, Ensigns of Command. Thank you very much, Commander Sharon. Yes, that's the episode. All right, so... I am going to now watch this trailer. Now, what Mr. Miles told me to do is, number 1, to watch just a few seconds at a time and make sure I pause it frequently so that hopefully the copyright bots don't shut us down. If suddenly the stream ends due to Lucasfilm or Disney being dicks or something, please put in the chat that the stream was stopped, because I won't be able to tell unless somebody tells me, because on the screen where I would normally be monitoring the stream, I have the trailer. So we can see that the trailer opens up with, well, and actually let me start over so I can, Mr. Miles will probably want to, cut in right about here. And so I can say, hey guys, Michael J. Crawford, the Anti-Trekker here, and today we are going to review the trailer for The Mandalorian. I've never seen it, so I'm very curious about what it is. I will say this, that first of all, the opening shot is, of course, what you can see right here. Looks like 4 stormtrooper helmets half buried in the sand. I have to say that while no context or anything with what's going on here, it's actually a very cool looking shot. And one thing that I do like about this, first of all, is that those are classic stormtrooper helmets. These are not first order helmets. Second of all, that it just gives that Star Wars vibe. The fact that these helmets are kind of dirty and dingy and all that, and it just kind of, that looks like freaking Star Wars right there. So let's take a look here. All right, so we zoom in a little bit. Okay, somebody walks by.
It's a world more peaceful.
All right, so now this is interesting. I don't know who that was walking by, but now this puts a little bit different perspective on it. These weren't just like, stormtrooper helmets fallen in a battle. It looks like this is a display to be, very imposing, a la Vlad the Impaler. The problem I have with this shot, while it is very cool imagery, it kind of makes me think of the shot from Attack of the Clones when little Boba Fett was holding his dad's helmet. Why didn't his dad's head fall out of the helmet? So what is, I mean, like, either these are just stormtrooper helmets impaled on stakes, which it means nothing. It just means, haha, we broke your hats. Or the heads of the stormtroopers are in those helmets, in which case, what is keeping the heads in the helmets? What is up with magic in Star Wars where heads don't fall out of helmets? Just kind of wondering.
Since the revolution. It is a shame that your people suffered.
So I guess this is our first proper look at Mandalorian armor on an actual Mandalorian. My understanding, now I'm not a Star Wars lore expert by any stretch, but my understanding is that Boba and Jango Fett were not Mandalorians, they just wore Mandalorian armor. And I noticed that we have a different color scheme here than we've seen from Boba and Jango. So I don't know, but I'm assuming that the colors, like the basic armor is the same shape for everybody, but I'm assuming the color scheme will have some kind of significance, like is it a different clan or something like that, but hopefully we will find out. All right, that was cool. We got to see, okay, so Mandalorians are badasses. Definitely got that vibe. Are they Jedi level badasses? I would like to see that in the series. I'd like to see a Mandalorian actually take on a Jedi, but that was cool.
But bounty hunting is a complicated profession.
All right, this I have a problem. By the way, is it just me? And I got to say this. Is it just me, or does it sound like this trailer is being narrated by Andre from Midnight's Edge? Because it sounds like Andre from Midnight's Edge. But I have a problem with this shot right here. I have a serious problem with this shot. And I didn't know this was coming, but what's with the carbonite? Because in Empire, they kind of made it clear that carbonite was not normally used for storing people, and so the Ugnaughts put together this carbon freezing chamber to try and trap Luke, and they ended up putting Han Solo in it, of course. But it seemed like this was not the norm as far as how to capture people. And here it looks like we got a whole like domino set of carbon frozen bounties. So this kind of rubs me the wrong way. Now, I would assume a simple explanation would be that this takes place sometime after the events of Empire Strikes Back, and carbon freezing becomes a common means of transporting bounties. But if it takes place before the events of Empire, or simultaneous as the time of Empire, I'm going to have a problem with that. Lucasfilm logo. Can't do anything without that. Alright, now, this ship, and I know it's kind of blurry and everything, but to me, this looks kind of like Nell from Battle Beyond the Stars. It just needs boobs.
They said you were coming. They said you were the best in the parsec.
So far, I mean, yes, it looks very Star Wars-y, and I'm intrigued a little bit, but I still don't know what this show is really about.
Would you agree?
Another kind of cool badass sequence from our bounty hunter / Mandalorian. But, you know, and we got to see Andre from Midnight's Edge there. Very cool. I didn't know what Andre looked like. Now we know. But still, no real meat to it. This is kind of a similar problem that we had with the Rise of Skywalker trailer, in that there's some very cool imagery, but no real story going on. Other than it's saying that, okay, the Mandalorian is badass. And you see, once again, oh, and here's a familiar face, of course, from the prequels. But again, it seems like they're definitely highlighting the fact that the Mandalorian himself is an absolute badass, which is cool. But are we going to get into Mary Sue level badass here? Because if he's that much of a badass, are we going to ever feel a sense of tension in this series? Are we going to see him get his butt kicked? I hope so. All right, now going back, I need to go back there just for a second, because that ship looked awfully familiar. I think I didn't go back quite far enough. It's really hard to tell. Is that a Naboo fighter? And if it is, are they really just... I mean, that looks like a Naboo fighter. And so... I really want to know, is that what's going on? And I got to take this call, guys, so quick break. I will be right back.
The board vessel's moving into range.
On screen.
Let's get lost in that magic place all alone now. Drink your fill from my fountain of love, wet your lips. I'm a man, I'm a teaser, I'm a man, well I'm a virgin, I'm a man, I'm a one-night stand, a man, I'm a man, I'm a man, I'm a dream, I'm a dream divine, make love together.
He's dead.
Oh, what is this? A female of the skunk persuasion. She is so stunning, I must...
Hey, what are you doing? Stop objectifying that cat.
What is this? She is Le Cat? Oh, I'm so sorry. I did not know.
Oh, what? Because she's a cat, she's not good enough for you?
No. But we are not even the same species, so...
Oh, so now you're cat shaming.
No. I am just...
Get him! Oh, so objectifying women and cat shaming is not bad enough? Now you have to make fun of the disabled? Jeez.
Mandalorian, look outside. They're waiting for you. Yeah? Good.
And I muted. That's why my phone was going off, I'll bet. Everybody's saying, hey, you're muted, you idiot. Yep. Thank you, BirdOPrey, for letting me know. Sorry about that, guys. All right, so. Wow, do I feel like an idiot now? I got to go back and let's look at the... Okay, so here's what I was saying. And Mr. Miles, I apologize, but you're going to have to kind of piece it together from what I'm talking about here. So number one... and Luke put €2 in saying unmute it, dang it. Thank you, Luke. I do appreciate it, and I am truly sorry about that. All right, so let me go back to where we were, is that... and Life with Matthew also puts $2. Oh, I'm going to mute more often. You guys start super chatting whenever I mute. I'm going to mute all the time from now on. So I do apologize. I feel like a complete idiot, but yeah.
Hello.
And he also puts €2 in saying unmute. I got it. Wow. Yeah, that's it. I'm going to unmute, or I'm going to mute myself all the frickin' time from now on so that you guys will super chat the crap out of me. All right, so I'm not that bad. All right, so here's the problem. Some really cool stuff, some really odd stuff. So like this scene here where it looks like we have Nell from Battle Beyond the Stars being chased by a Nabooian fighter. Looks cool, but that confuses me because I'm thinking, okay, is this a prequel era series? Is this a original trilogy era series? It's certainly not a sequel trilogy era series because we saw the classic stormtroopers and stuff. So I would guess that it's during the original trilogy, but we never saw anything from the Nabooians during that time. So, okay, but the Nabooians, we don't know that they were not around, so fair enough. But it still throws me off a little bit. And while the visual imagery throughout this trailer is absolutely spectacular, some stuff on here that, I mean, like, obviously the costumes, awesome. Look at the cinematography of this shot. This is not a freaking television program. This is really, really top-notch stuff. We have, of course, the battle droid. I can't remember what he's called, but looks very, very cool here because we've seen this droid in Empire Strikes Back, or at least something similar to this droid that was one of the bounty hunters. And in fact, we saw a couple of things that were bounty hunters from Empire Strikes Back, which is cool. And I don't know if this is actually that bounty hunter. Like, are they going to create this faction of bounty hunters that we're going to follow? Because that's the ultimate downfall of this trailer. They don't tell us jack about the story. They tell us that this show is going to be probably the most incredibly beautiful show ever produced for a streaming service. Because this show, what I was saying when you guys started messaging me that I'm muted, is that this show makes Star Trek Discovery look like Star Trek the original series as far as visual effects. And while, yes, I've railed on Star Trek Discovery in terms of writing and story, visually it's a gorgeous show. This makes Star Trek Discovery look like absolute crap. So I am very, very impressed with the visual style of this show. But like The Rise of Skywalker, I don't know jack about what it's about. I don't know I don't know what the plot is. Okay, so the Mandalorian, is he a bounty hunter? It kind of seems that way. If he's a bounty hunter, so are we just going to watch a bad guy hunting down other people for Jabba the Hutt? Because it looked like a lot of this is on Tatooine. Is that what this is about? Or is this a guy who's fighting bounty hunters because there's a bounty out on his head? Don't know. Don't have a clue. The only thing I know is there's going to be dead stormtroopers and lots of bounty hunters. So the one bright side I'll say to all this is that Jon Favreau is the person behind this series. And I have more faith in Jon Favreau than I do in J.J. Abrams or Rian Johnson. So it's a beautiful looking show, but that's all I really know. I will definitely look forward to seeing it in a couple of weeks, but dang it, I don't know jack about it. That's my problem. All right, so now I'm going to get back to the chat. Thank you all for your patience, and thank you for all the super chats, especially since the super chats were just because I was freaking muted like an idiot. All right, so let's get... Man, that's a lot of chat. All right, so... number 23, I already read that one. Droids and voice line, few things may miss watching. Let's see. Droids and a voice line in a few things people may miss watching the trailer. I'm not sure what you mean. A-Team, Rebels and Data both have plot armor. Stormtroopers don't. Data wins, case closed. Well, I think that's cheating, though. I'm just saying, like, if you look at Data's capabilities versus Stormtroopers, and you look at the weapons available to Data versus Stormtroopers, I think Data wins because he has superior firepower, and Data has proven to be a superior marksman and is also more resistant to damage. Because a Stormtrooper can be killed by a rock. Rock Sauce Editor, use your phone to monitor the stream. Yeah, I should have. Darth Vader says, wait, go back. There was a saber sound at the beginning. I did hear that, but we didn't see it. At least not, I didn't see it. And so if there is a Mandalorian versus a Jedi in there, I'm looking forward to it, but yeah. Let's see, says Mandalorian takes place about 5 years after Jedi. If that's the case, I'm still borderline on the carbon freezing, but yeah. What kind of reaction video is this? Where are the tears? Yeah, well, you're not. I'd have to see something a whole lot better than this, or a whole lot worse than this, to see some tears. Because the helmets have chin straps, Andrew Turner. Remember that Han and Luke had to remove the chin straps to take off the helmets. Very good thinking, BioMike. That must be it. And Darth Vader says the Mandalorians are divided into clans. I can't. That makes sense. Mr. Londell says there's a great big spike going through not only the helmet but whatever's in it. Notice the stuff hanging out the bottom. Yeah, but the stuff hanging out the bottom. Let me see if I can get back there. It seemed to me, maybe not back far enough. There's the first shot. There we go. It seems to me that stuff hanging out the bottom of these is like rags. It doesn't look like guts. Those aren't spinal cords or intestines. Those are like rags. They're pieces of clothing. And further, the only blood we see is on the front of this helmet. That could be blood. But these, there's no other blood in this shot. So I'm not buying that the chin strap thing makes sense, but that's definitely not guts hanging out of it. Looks like when the towels wiped out the clone and droid base in Clone Wars. Well, I haven't seen Clone Wars, so I wouldn't know. Can somebody tell Andrew that the trailer is so loud that my neighbors can hear it? Sorry about that. I did not know that. George Lucas wants people to know that Jango Fett and Boba Fett are not Mandalorians, just bounty hunters with Mandalorian armor. Well, I know that, but and that I knew before seeing this trailer. And I understand that The Mandalorian is about a true Mandalorian, but so I'm curious. John says this after Return of the Jedi, so maybe Carbonate became popular. It makes sense. I would have to, yeah. I hope they have some. They need to put a line in about that though. If they do, Darren says agree. Carbon freeze on people wasn't a sure thing back in Empire. Didn't seem like the norm. I guess the idea had to come from somewhere. Yeah. Luke says note it's after Return of the Jedi and Empire, long after Jabba, a famous figure in the crime world, has put frozen Solo on display for a certain time. Yeah, and if that's the case, as long as they throw a line in about that, I'm okay with it. And again, Darth Revan says this after Empire. Thank you. Dan says, don't forget that they did freezing thing in the Clone Wars TV show. I've not seen the Clone Wars TV show, so I don't know that. And if they did, and then that's a continuity error right there. Best in the parsec. Parsecs aren't that big. It's my understanding that that's like saying best in the county. Yeah, actually, it seems more like saying, because the way Star Wars is, it's more like saying best on our block. Narrated by one of the characters in this trailer. Yes, but the problem is that, you know, it would seem like Andre from Midnight's Edge is narrating it, but I don't know who he is. Right? Who is this guy? What is his significance? Why, you know, and so all we know is the Mandalorian is a badass. On Mandalore, the ruler of the Mandalorian, or the Mandalorian. Okay, I thought Mandalorian was reference to space, to the race, not a person. Dollars to Pesos says the Mandalorian turns out to be female. You know. Tiki says, Mr. Ancher, it's your doctor. You're pregnant. That would be scary. It's about a guy who's a Mandalorian. Yes, that's definitely true. That's definitely true. Must go through this very important thing pertaining to your earlier video. Okay. Ancher, while you were waiting, show us the beauty of Laura's body. Yeah, well, you didn't quite get that one. Sorry. And then there's where all the stuff about that was muted. Sorry about that, guys. That was all entirely on me. Okay, about the sound. Unmute, dude. Mandalorian, unmute the sound. Can't hear you. Mute. You're muted. Can't hear Trigger. Best stream ever. Muted Trekker. Unmute. Not since the end of the phone call. You're muted. What are you saying? I can't read lips. Jex texted. Everybody's laughing at me. So I mean, unmute. Damn it. Unmute. Pulling a bird. What did he just call us? All right, we haven't heard a word. Yeah, I know. Love the face. He makes me discourage him muted the whole time. Yes, I was an idiot. Clever way to make $6. Absolutely, I'm going to do that every time from now on. This takes place a few years after Jedi. Yep, got that. But I still want to have some dialogue that establishes that carbon freezing is now commonplace. Continuous as House of Recovery. Hope you're doing better. Well, I talked about that earlier in the stream. Actually, what that phone call was is I have to do an MRI because they're concerned about some problems from the surgery. However, overall, I'm doing okay. Don't forget this has a droid, gunship, and B2 battle droids in it. Well, that means nothing to me. IG-88, thank you. Yes, that's the droid from Empire Strikes Back, which was cool to see. American fighter jets still have recognizable wing shapes in decades, and so have Russian and French fighter jets. Why was ceremonial Royal Naboo fighters look so different decades? I know, it just seems weird to see a Nabooian fighter. The new trailers for Resistance Season 2 / The Mandalorian and Episode 9 all have separatist droids in it. That's kind of interesting. Jabba is dead in this entry. John Favreau says 5 years after Return of the Jedi. Fair enough. The ship, but then who is he working for or what's going on? The ship, the bounty hunter ship is chasing, looks like a rogue class starfighter. I'm not sure which ship you're referring to. It's not a battle droid, it's an IG droid. Yeah, IG-88, I get that now. I know that nude lore worth more, but we deserve to see him. Hey, you got 3 mega chats out of that phone call. Luke says, and Data can be killed by an arrow. Remember the holodeck, unless you want to validate first, contact Uber Data. Well, first of all, Luke, he can't be killed by an arrow, but he was minorly damaged by an arrow. But if, and let's face it, if a person got hit by an arrow, just like the one that Data got hit by, they would be down for the count. Data just pulled the arrow out and said, yeah, it seems to have damaged a couple of servos there. Anyway, let's move on. And Leia got hit in the shoulder by a blaster bolt and was fine, except that her arm was burned and stuff, and she was pretty sore. She might have broken a bone or something. Data could shrug that off. So I'm sorry. I think that Data, it would take a whole lot of blaster fire to take Data down. It's a story about the Mandalorian and his friends. Yeah, but that doesn't tell me anything. I want information about the plot, the structure. Tell me. Nathan says carbon freezing is risky. Yeah, I know that's the problem. It seems like that wouldn't be a common thing to do, but oh well. Article says they're going to reveal the origins of the First Order. Well, that's a bad idea. I don't want that, but oh well. We'll see what happens. If you look at the actual episodes, the directors, they are mostly SJW hacks. Well, here's the thing. The directors are, on a television series, the directors are less important than the showrunner. All right, keep in mind, like in a film, the director is the single most important person in the production, right? Rian Johnson, more than any other person, is responsible for The Last Jedi. J.J. Abrams, more than any other person, is responsible for The Force Awakens, right? And the same is true of any major film. However, on television series, the director is almost incidental. The director just means it's someone who has the ability to direct your talent into doing whatever the script says. The real power of a television show comes in the position of showrunner, and which would be similar to, but not quite like, executive producer on a film. So the showrunner actually makes the final call on everything. And so if your showrunner is an SJW hack, you got problems. Such as Star Trek Discovery. But if your showrunner is Jon Favreau, that could be a good thing. There's a female character in this, and she has a rebel symbol tattooed under her eye and cheek. It's very small, even for her action figure. Well, yeah, we'll see what happens with that. But just because there's a female character, that's not a good thing or a bad thing. Look up the Prince Oberyn Game of Thrones. Prince Oberyn Game of Thrones. He's the Mandalorian. I don't care about that. I don't care who the actor is. I want to know what the story is about. Dan says, I will be honest, the trailer don't really tell you when it's set. Trailer doesn't tell you crap. And Captain Spire puts $2 in. You're all wrong. The Mandalorian is Mikey Spock. That would be terrifying. Darth Maul, you keep reading mute. Sounds like blaster fire. Wesley says, watching The Mandalorian. Yes, just watched the trailer for The Mandalorian. Not a bad trailer overall, but it really just lacks any meat to it as far as I still don't know what the show is about. That's the problem. Is that if you don't tell me what the show is about, how am I going to get excited? Now, I understand that for some people, this trailer seems like it was created for people that know the extended Star Wars lore. If you've been following Clone Wars, if you've been reading the books, if you know all the details of absolutely everything in Star Wars, then you go, yes, it's a fill-in-the-blank detail thing that I have no idea about, right? It would be like how geeked out I would be if they showed the original Dreadnought class ship from the Star Trek technical manual in a trailer for a new Star Trek series, right? I would get all nerded out about that. So I get that, but they got to tell you something about what the story is, or else someone like me who is a Star Wars fan but not necessarily a Star Wars super fanboy, I don't know anything about what this show is about, except that we see stormtrooper helmets impaled on spikes, and there's some guy called a Mandalorian who's apparently a badass. And that's not enough for me. Now, granted, I'm going to watch the show, but that's still, I mean, if I wasn't planning on getting Disney Plus, the trailer on its own would not inspire me to get Disney Plus, because I'll be like, well, it's pretty, but I don't know anything about it. Might be good, might suck. But I'm already planning on getting Disney Plus, because it's going to have a lot of content on it that I'm going to enjoy, regardless of whether The Mandalorian is any good. Mandalore is the leader of the Mandalorians, position invented by the Sith to rally the Mandalorians against the Jedi. Okay? But I still don't know jack about it. And you see, that's the thing. You guys are talking extended lore stuff that your average person doesn't know about, and the thing is, none of that matters. It's not in the trailer. That's what you got to get, is that without putting anything in the trailer, that's not a good trailer overall, because you got to tell people what it's about. Death Dealer says, hey, how you doing? Luke says, countless human remains with pre-mortem arrow trauma, including in the chest. Disagree with you. You can totally survive an arrow or a bullet. Now imagine an arrow in Data's positronic brain. Well, first of all, when I say down for the count, I don't mean dead. I mean that if you take an arrow to the chest, Luke, unless you are a freaking Scotsman, you are going to go down. You are not going to continue fighting because you are going to have a piece of wood piercing your body and you are going to be in a ridiculous amount of pain. Data does not feel pain, and the damage to Data was minor compared to a human because, of course, left untreated, if you take that arrow and yank it out like Data did, you're going to start bleeding all over the place, and if you hit an artery, you're dead meat. So that's what I'm talking about. Now, as far as the arrow hitting Data's positronic brain, well, I don't know. We don't know how tough the shell around his brain is. Could an arrow penetrate Data's skull? I don't know the answer to that. The Mandalorian is Brie Larson. Very bad idea. Mikey's Foley class is better. Disagree. You don't know what the Mandalorian is about. That may be the one thing you and the showrunner have in common. That's terrible. Clone Wars, they reprogrammed some battle droids to fly Separatist shuttle to the Separatist place so no life signs are detected, and a Republic strike team froze themselves in carbonite. Okay, but that's still, the thing is that it still seems like, at least in Empire, carbonite was a very risky thing. I hope that in that Clone Wars episode they made it out that that was a very dangerous thing to do. I thought he was going to say the HMS Dreadnought from 1906 and got excited. Then he said Star Trek and I was slightly disappointed. Sorry, Nathan. Darren says, I hate 3 nacelled Starfleet ships, but then I tend to personally adhere to Gene Roddenberry's nacelles work in pairs rule. Well, but you see, Darren, that's not canon. Nowhere in canon. You see, I'm going to use your own line of argumentation against you. The only thing that matters is canon according to you, and therefore a 1 nacelled, 3 nacelled, 25 nacelled ship makes no difference because nowhere in canon do they say that nacelles work in pairs. And we've actually seen ships with odd-numbered nacelles. Granted, not often, but we have seen them. Simple, it's a Western-like series of the Star Wars universe post-Endor period. The focus is on a Mandalorian that happens to be a bounty hunter, sort of crime, underworld, post-Emperor stuff. Okay, so, what about the trailer tells you any of that, Luke? Except for Western-like series, there's nothing else that you said in that you can get from that trailer. You don't know the period. It doesn't. Nowhere in that trailer do they establish what time period it is. They don't focus on. They don't tell you at any point that the Mandalorian is a bounty hunter. They do mention bounty hunters, but they don't say at least not that I caught. They don't say the Mandalorian is a bounty hunter, and they don't say anything about the Mandalorian being involved in the underworld. They don't say anything about the Emperor. None of that is in the trailer, Luke. That is all you probably reading stuff from articles or interviews or whatever, but that's the problem. You've got to put it in the trailer. Your average person is only going to see the trailer. They're not going to look up every interview with Jon Favreau to get the details on it. They're not going to look at every freaking article that's posted on the internet about it and every rumor. They're just going to see this trailer and say, what the hell is that? So you say it's simple, but everything except for the fact that it looks like a Western type of series is stuff you extrapolated that is not in the trailer. The Mandalorian, created by Jon Favreau, written by Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni, Kathleen Kennedy, I'm not sure who that is, executive producer, Favreau, Filoni, Kennedy, and Colin Winston in that order. Well, as far as Kathleen Kennedy being involved, I doubt that she's going to be running the show. I think this is more Jon Favreau's baby than anybody else. And if that's the case, I think that's a good thing. Nathan says, if there's nothing in the trailer, then maybe nothing in the show, which is worst case scenario. Well, yeah, I don't want the show to be nothing, but I want to know what it is. That's the problem. I don't think the show's going to be about nothing, but the problem is this doesn't tell me. I think the problem is that they're assuming everybody's a fanboy and knows. Star Wars trailers are scared to death to give any story details. That is very true. Luke says, Clone Wars era separatist war material would be equivalent to a Cold War era Russian surplus in modern time. It's cheap everywhere and only the poor guys in countries buy it. Okay. Nathan says, they show stuff alluding to the pairs theory, take out 1 nacelle, and they cannot warp. It happened, the Odyssey and the Klingon Vorcha, and one episode to the Enterprise. Well, all that tells you, but here's the problem: if you have a ship with 2 nacelles, for example, like a Constitution class or the NX class or whatever, and you take out one nacelle with your weapons, well, that warp engine was balanced to work with 2 nacelles. And so now you would have to completely reconfigure the... Plus, one thing that does seem consistent is the warp nacelles need to be symmetrical. So, yeah. We didn't see a 3 nacelle ship until the final episode of TNG, and it was from an alternate timeline. While not canon, Roddenberry's rule still fits. We see no odd nacelled ships. Incorrect, Darren. We do see odd nacelled ships in Star Trek 2009, which, while it is in an alternate timeline, that alternate timeline is a branch off of the prime timeline, and those are warp nacelles, and it is warp drive, so yes, it works. Rumor in Picard they're bringing in Sela. That would actually, I actually have I'm going to probably do a video on this. I have my own theory as to what I would like Picard to be about. And so I'm going to do a video basically describing what I think the plot of Picard should be, and then we'll compare it to what Picard is when the show actually comes out. We have never seen a ship with only 1 functioning nacelle go to warp. That doesn't change the fact that we have seen ships with odd numbers of nacelles. And by the way, just because the Enterprise, the Galaxy X, as they call it, was in fact a alternate future timeline. And by the way, Dirty Charisma just subscribed. Thank you, Dirty Charisma. If you're here right now, thank you. But if you look at All Good Things, the Galaxy X class ship is still a 3 nacelled ship in the TNG universe functioning properly. You may not like it and say, oh, it's an alternate time. It's still a future timeline in which the Galaxy class starship was developed into a 3 nacelled ship, and it works. Sorry, that is proof that it can work. It just doesn't mean that it will work. Thomas also points out there were 1 and 3 nacelled ships in the debris in the Wolf 359 battle. Thank you, Thomas, for your observancy. I appreciate that. Luke says, note that the story trailer is trying to construct, how I read it, it doesn't necessarily mean that a voiceover will eventually be that guy talking to the Mandalorian. I don't think that here's the thing. I guess let me go back because it looks like I missed a couple of chats. Sorry about that. Luke says, I'm deriving it all from the trailer. The Western, like you got it. The Mandalorian is in the title. Yeah, but the thing is that there's nothing about it that says that the Mandalorian is a bounty hunter. And you said the voiceover is talking to the character about bounty hunting. That doesn't mean that he is a bounty hunter. He might be just bragging about what he does, or he might be talking about somebody else. We don't know. We don't know anything specific other than the fact that, because the rest of what you said, it's still not there, right? That's the problem. Like when you said, let me see, post-Endor period, not in the trailer. Mandalorian that happens to be a bounty hunter. No, we know that there's a Mandalorian in it. We know they talk about bounty hunting, but the Mandalorian is a bounty hunter? That is you drawing a conclusion based on, I think, what you believe or got from third-party resources, not from the trailer itself. Crime Underworld, that is an assumption. For all we know, that dude that's talking to the Mandalorian is a freaking senator. We don't know who he is. They don't say who he is. And post-Emperor, again, they do not establish a timeline. So, yeah, sorry. All right, so we have never seen a ship. I already read that. You invoke JJ Trek, ha ha ha. Luke says, note, okay, I already read that. Andrew says, I hope you can play Edge of the Empire sometime. It's a Star Wars RPG. Well, maybe I will one day, but not today. I understand more about the Mandalorian people from watching the Clone Wars and the Rebels. Well, you see, and that's the problem. Most people haven't. And so that's where I think they make the mistake, is that they need to, they need to, market this to everybody, not just the hardcore. You can break all kinds of rules in alternate timelines. That's why they can be dismissed. Except, Darren, that, if it is a possible future, which is what that was in All Good Things, is what they called a possible future. That means that it is possible for a 3 nacelle ship to work. Sorry, buddy. And I mean, I know you really want it to just be that way, but just because you want it that way doesn't mean it is. 66 watching, 35 thumbs up, 1 thumbs down. Oh, Lori Reloaded must be here. Darren says, I concede that Roddenberry's nacelle rules have been abandoned behind the scenes. Well, besides that, I don't know why you'd argue about the Roddenberry nacelle rule anyway, because you made this big old deal about the reason that you think that anything that I say about the name of the Romulan bird of prey is invalid because it's all behind the scenes stuff, and nothing behind the scenes ever counts, because unless they say it on screen, it doesn't count. And they never once on the show on any Trek said that you have to have warp engines work in pairs. Never once will you find that anywhere in Trek. So the Roddenberry rule is irrelevant, does not exist, because it's not on screen. That's your way of arguing, Darren. Azine is here, says, evening all, hope you're healing up okay. Well, that's a long story, but no. I'm actually going in for an MRI next week because there's a problem. Well, it's like people who only watch Guardians of the Galaxy movies and not any of the other Marvel movies and may not understand what's going on because you're not watching Infinity War and Endgame. Well, that's, yeah, kind of, except that the difference is the Marvel Cinematic Universe is like one giant franchise, where with Star Wars, the movies are the primary franchise, and then you have all this side stuff like the animated shows and the books and stuff like that. When you start switching to different mediums, it becomes a situation where you can't make it so you have to see the other medium to know what's going on in your primary universe. That breaks it. For example, if you want to talk about the MCU, there's a lot of interesting stuff coming to Disney Plus involving the MCU, like the Hawkeye series, the WandaVision series, the Loki series, all that. And while it will be official canon within the MCU, if they make it to where the next Avengers movie won't make sense unless you've seen the Hawkeye series, that will be a huge mistake in my opinion. You have to make it so that it supplements the MCU but is not required reading, so to speak, to understand the MCU. For all we know, it could be a John Wayne-like space western air trigger, like one of those set after the U.S. Civil War. Could be, don't know. There's no way the Mandalorian is a straight white male. I'm calling it's going to be Lily. I don't know, but I hope you're wrong. Luke says, not in the trailer. We see Mandalorian working with IG-88, which is the droid bounty hunter from the Empire. Right, but first of all, you don't see him working with IG-88. You see the Mandalorian and you see IG-88. Nowhere in the trailer does he say, hey guys, we're partners. All right, so just because you see the Mandalorian and IG-88 doesn't mean the Mandalorian is working with him. Which, and also, is IG-88, or that droid that we see, is that actually IG-88, or is it just another IG droid? Like, it could be IG-75, right? Or IG-92, or whatever. So, if that's not IG-88, that droid may not be a bounty hunter. Also, the trailer opens with stormtrooper heads echoing with the Return of the Jedi imagery. Yeah, it's all we know there is, okay, dead stormtroopers. So that tells me that it takes place after the prequels and before the sequels. So sometime in between, all we know really based on the stormtrooper armor is that it takes place sometime in between The Last Jedi and The Force Awakens. And so it could take place, like, people have been saying 5 years after Jedi, could take place 10 years before A New Hope. Even if you're a Star Wars superfan and looked up everything, you still not know squat about Snoke. That is true. Comments in chat are casual discussion, not any kind of serious analysis. Hence, I can talk about behind-the-scenes stuff. Oh, so now you're changing the rules so that when you're in chat, you can use it as an argument, but in a video you can't, or I can't because I'm the host. Yeah, that's called bullshit. Sorry, Darren. Sorry. No. Just because, if you're gonna establish a rule that if it's not on screen, it doesn't count, then if it's not on screen, it doesn't count. Period. No double standards here. Luke says entry, and again, that's my interpretation. What looks simple to derive for me isn't necessarily easy for you. It's not guaranteed to be correct either. But that's the thing. If it's not guaranteed to be correct, then it's not in the trailer. You're interpreting things based on images that you get that invoke certain feelings to you. But that is different than if they said, so, Mandalorian, you're a great bounty hunter, you think, but wait until you meet this guy. And then you see, like, some dark figure in the shadows and a red lightsaber, and you'd be like, ooh, but we don't get anything like that. All we know is he's a badass. Mr. Lundell says, what the heck is the Roddenberry rule? Well, Roddenberry had this idea with warp engines that they had to work in pairs. So you could any starship had to have an even number of warp engines. You could not have a starship with one engine. You could not have a starship with 3 engines. There's no canon to this. It was something that Roddenberry said as a design philosophy when they were trying to design ships. And that's why the vast majority of Starfleet ships have 2 warp nacelles. Why are we seeing your desktop repeated into infinity? Oh, good question. Probably because I forgot to get rid of that. Yep, Battle of Wolf 359. Yeah, that's true. I didn't think about that. Using some electronic weapon on Data and he shut down and collapsed and someone had to restart him. Yeah, but we haven't... The stormtroopers would just have blasters. I mean, we're talking about standard armament. So the stormtroopers would have blasters. Data would have a hand phaser. And I think Data would have the edge there. Azine says, sorry to hear that, but at least it's being dealt with. Hope you get it sorted. I do too, my friend. Mandalorian actor is Hispanic. Well, that's kind of irrelevant. I found an old episode of Rational Roundtable which you apparently filmed through a sheet of grease paper. One question. When did you give up wearing the tribally? Tribally? I don't know what what that is. If you're talking about the hat I used to wear, I actually have the hat over there. Darren says, tee-hee. Luke says, fighting with. That's what the trailer implies. It does not imply anything. You see the robot fighting. You see the Mandalorian fighting. That's it. That doesn't imply that they fight. They could be fighting against each other. We don't know. They could be a team. They could be enemies. They could be rivals. We have no idea. And let's see. So you're looking forward to The Mandalorian. You sound very skeptical. Well, I am looking forward to the show, and yes, I am very skeptical because Star Wars has been under attack for a number of years now. So by the SJW community, and so I just I'm not convinced that it's going to be good. I am hopeful that it's going to be good. And let me see here. Where is that? You sent an image of a one-nacelled ship, Thomas says. Did you? I assume, did you send it on Twitter? Yes, looks like you sent it on Twitter. USS Firebrand, yes, very good. And so, there you go. From Best of Both Worlds, suck it, Darren. All right. And let's see. Where was I? Now I lost it. Oh, yeah. Joseph says, James R. Kirk was on screen. Does that count? Actually, interesting explanation for James R. Kirk is that tombstone was created, of course, by Gary Mitchell. And Gary made a mistake. That's all it was. Is that Gary, when he made the tombstone, he screwed it up. That's to me the most obvious fact is that it says James R. Kirk because Gary was only human, even though he had superpowers. Elo, anti-trekker. Even chaps. All right. Hey, Nigel. Welcome. Are you new? I don't know your name. So if you're new, welcome. Once again, I said personally adhere to Roddenberry's design rules. I was referring strictly to my own projects like Star Trek Halibut. I get that, Darren, but I'm just saying the Roddenberry design rule doesn't exist. Close the window. You're watching The Mandalorian on. Yeah, sorry about that. Ships with more warp nacelles do not go faster. That's actually an interesting... The thing is, that's another thing that there is no canonical reference to. We do not know if the number of warp nacelles actually makes a difference to the maximum warp speed of a ship. Because at least 90% of the ships that we see in all of Trek have 2 nacelles. Whether they be Federation, Romulan, Klingon, and what have you. So, but if you have, like, now we do know that the Enterprise X with 3 nacelles was much faster than the Enterprise D. So, while the 3 nacelle version is faster, is that because of the 3rd nacelle or other improvements that have been made to the ship? We don't know the answer to that. Just like, we know that the Excelsior was faster than the Enterprise, but that's because it had a next-gen warp drive that they called Transwarp at the time. Didn't the rule also have something to do with needing line of sight? Yes, and that was the idea that, and in fact, I saw some interesting artwork that was supposed to be how the warp engines would work in the motion picture that they scrapped because they didn't have time to do the visual effects. Is most people may remember that with the, and I do love the warp nacelles from the motion picture, but on those warp nacelles, you know, on the inside of edge of them were these grids that you could see that were facing each other, and they were going to have an energy field going between the grids, and that's why they had to work in pairs, because you had to have this one here, the grid comes together, and that in turn creates the warp bubble. They were going to do that visually, but then it got scrapped because they couldn't, you know, the Star Trek the Motion Picture was way behind in production and way over on budget. Let's see. If you put that hat on, I'm coming for your other leg. You will need to learn to walk with one leg up your ass. Wow. You don't like the hat, huh? Interesting. Ah, yes, the firebrand. I sit corrected. Todd says, yes, I have a model of the firebrand. Oh, very cool. Of course you do, Thomas. You have like every model. I'll admit your knowledge of Star Trek is a lot, but lacking in Star Wars. I admit that fully, Wesley. I am not... I love Star Wars. I've loved Star Wars since the first film came out in 1977. I saw it on opening day, and I remember it well. And I've shown pictures of me from 1970, late 77, early 78, holding a TIE fighter when I was a kid. So I love Star Wars, but I'm not a Star Wars fanatic to where I know all the stuff, right? With Star Trek TOS in particular, I know a lot. I do think a one-nacelle ship doesn't look right. Well, you know, I like the scout ship concept, but yeah, it doesn't look quite right. In TNG, they mentioned once that they had to get the water out of Data's systems, but in Insurrection, he acted like a flotation device. Yes, that is true. I always assumed, and it's just an assumption, is that more nacelles means you can stay at warp longer. Here's the thing. The way I always thought of it as far as the nacelles thing is that more nacelles means that it's your warp field is more stable, which means that you could warp under more stressful conditions. But yeah, it doesn't necessarily make the ship any faster, but it does make it so the ship can warp in areas where other ships cannot. Luke says, we can at least infer that more than 2 nacelles doesn't increase your speed by using an episode you love, Threshold. How does Threshold create that? Because the Delta Flyer, I don't know, does the Delta Flyer have only, I don't know, that's kind of weird because it doesn't really have traditional nacelles, so... Actually, it wasn't even the Delta Flyer. It was like a refit shuttle, wasn't it? Anyway, Darren says, yeah, they wanted lightning leaping between the 2 nacelles for TMP. I think it would have been dumb, personally. I do, too. I'm kind of glad it didn't work out. But I get that, had they done that, then what you were saying about them working in pairs would have been on-screen canon. Do you think they should have TNG'd Miranda-class airships? Do you think they should have TNG'd Miranda-class ships for the TNG era, such as make the nacelles match the Enterprise and other ships from the era? Well, Thomas, they kind of did that with the Nebula. If you look at the Nebula is to the Galaxy what the Miranda is to the Constitution, and I think the Nebula is an ugly-ass ship. I would think that adding a 3rd nacelle would not speed it up, but maybe stabilize the warp bubble, allowing for a ship to stay at high warp for extended periods of time. I would say that plus being able to have a more stable warp field so that things could not disrupt it that otherwise could. Yeah, you go to the New Trail Star Wars YouTube channel, look at the description, they give no information. Of course they don't. Dr. Alex says, yay, still streaming strong. Well, only for a minute. I'm going to be wrapping it up here in just a minute, Doctor, but good to see you, my friend. Azine says, very cool. I've never seen the concept art. Would explain why the inside of the refit nacelles had a blue glow. Yes. I understand the number of cells increases warp field stability rather than increased speed. 2 are all that are required for a stable warp field, while 1 is enough to get the job done. That's kind of the way I looked at it too, Schromer. Maybe the odd number of nacelles are backups. Well, the thing is, though, is that one thing that does seem to, at least we've never seen anything contradicting this, is it does seem the nacelles need to be symmetrical. So if you have a 3 nacelle ship and 1 nacelle goes out, unless the nacelle that goes out is the one in the center, you are no longer symmetrical. Imagine how fast the shuttle would have been with 4 nacelles. Well, except that with 2, it went infinity speed, and there is nothing faster than infinity. Paris is modifying normal shuttle to go beyond warp 10. He didn't increase the number of nacelles. Inference reasoning, the possible refit unnecessary to go beyond warp 10. Or, Luke, the possibility that threshold is a bad dream. I think that's the best explanation for that episode because it's just so freaking bad. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap it up there, but thank you all. It was an interesting conversation and everything, but my leg is absolutely killing me after all the crap this morning. Wish me luck with the MRI next week. I don't know if I'll be able to do a stream next Tuesday because I will be in the doctors getting the freaking MRI done, which is more important, unfortunately, than doing live streams. But, you know, I would rather do a live stream, but I can't do one from the MRI machine because even if I had my phone, they won't let me take it into the MRI machine. But 2 last chats I'll do real quick. Dan says, best of both worlds is 1 warp nacelle ship. Yes, showed a picture of it a couple of minutes ago thanks to Thomas Potts. It's right there. And Nathan Norman says, I think he meant he should the Miranda and Excelsior classes having galaxy-shaped style nacelles. Now, I think that would look stupid. Personally, that's why I said if I were going to do a new Star Trek series, do it in the movie era. I love that design philosophy, and unfortunately, I think the next gen designs, they look cartoony to me. Good luck with the MRI. Thank you, doctor. And everybody, have a good one. Thank you for hanging out with me, and don't forget to wipe.
Let me play among the stars. Let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. In other words, hold my hand. In other words, baby, I love you. You son of a bitch, anti-tracker! You take that back! You take that back right now! He said that Frank Sinatra and Freddie Mercury were man-on-man lovers. It's not true, Mr. Miles! You're all liars! You're all liars, you sons of bitches!